Good morning, everyone. I'm Diane Cowen, the architecture and home design writer at the Houston Chronicle, and I'd like to thank you for joining me today at the Montgomery County Home and Outdoor Show, conducted virtually this year. So today I'm going to talk about color and comfort in our homes. We're all spending so much more time in our homes right now because of the pandemic, and something I have heard from a lot of interior designers is that existing clients and new clients are all coming to them saying, I'm realizing how tired my living room is, or I need better furniture for this or for that. Everyone is realizing their homes are in need of an update, even if it's just a fresh coat of paint and a new sofa. So one of the big trends right now is for homes to be more comforting, to have rooms that all get used so they all have a function, which is really important now, as we're setting up lots of home offices and maybe even home classrooms for our kids. And another big trend that I'm seeing is color, an infusion of color in homes. There are still some people who like that light neutral, tone on tone, everything white or taupe or gray, but I'm seeing huge pops of color in furnishings and accessories and rugs and draperies. And so I'm going to show you a bunch of pictures today that will inspire you to see how you can do that too. Even if you still like the white sofa or the gray walls, there are lots of ways to bring big pops of color into your home. So let's get started. So we're going to start with dining rooms. Let's move on to the next slide. So here is just a gorgeous dining room that I really love. You know, dining rooms are sort of the room that is in flux right now. People either absolutely want a dining room because they entertain a lot, or they have big family meals there all the time, or they have no use. There's no in between. And so some people are using dining rooms for other purposes. But when they do use a dining room a lot, they're making it a real showpiece. Often, a dining room is in the front of the house. So when people walk in, you might see a room to the left or to the right, and that's your dining room. So in that case, it makes a big statement about the rest of your house. And you don't want people walking in and saying, ugh, boring, you know, everything's plain and dated or old. So you want to have a nice looking dining room if it's one of the first rooms that people see in your home. This room, an extra little bonus for you, this is the dining room in the home of Jose Altuve, the Astros player. I wrote about his home not long ago, and it's online on HoustonChronicle.com if you want to look for it and see lots more pictures. But this is his dining room. There's a lot of black and white and gray in his home, but he has big pops of color in a lot of places. And they went with these sort of jewel-toned burgundy dining chairs in this room. The floors are all white, the walls are white, and those black panels that you see on the back wall are panels of black glass. And it's really, you know, ingenious because it's just glass, so it's not super, super expensive. And it's this great, gorgeous, unexpected architectural treatment on what otherwise would be a big, plain white wall. And they've got a nice chandelier over the dining table that's modern, but feels a little mid-century. So it brings a little character and personality in, but big pop of color in those dining chairs. That's one thing I'm seeing in dining rooms, color in the chairs and people spending more money on the chairs, which can be a big investment because you're usually going to have 6 or 8 or 10 of them. And, you know, even if you're just buying inexpensive ones for $200 or $300 a piece, you know, you're buying 10 chairs, that's $3,000. A lot of them cost a couple $1,000s each. So they're a big investment. So people do spend that money if they are going to be using them a lot because you want them to hold up. So let's go on to the next slide. There's another dining room. See, another big pop of color in the chairs. So they've got kind of neutral walls. They've got white draperies, but they've put a pretty tape trim on them in this pretty teal color. And teal, or what you might call peacock blue, is a huge trend. Blue has been so big this year, all of 2020, and I think it's going to be big going into 2021. So if you invest in blue, it is not wasted money because that trend is not going to go out of style. It's a long-time favorite color for everyone. and it's easy to work with because you can put other colors with it so easily. But they've put this pretty tape trim on the draperies, which is a nice way to add a little bit of color and personality to draperies, which really, really soften a room. I know a lot of people don't think they're necessary, but they really just dramatically change a room when you put them up. Even if all you're doing is putting them on each side of the window to frame the window, and you don't ever intend to pull them shut. Now these you can pull shut, but even if they're just framing the window, they soften a room and they help dampen noise. So if you're in there and you've ever had a dinner party where like it feels so loud in there, add some draperies and you won't believe the acoustical change it will make. But they use peacock blue in this room, and they used it in these chairs, which is a pretty popular style, very simple, very contemporary, but it works in, these chairs work in a traditional home, transitional, and even more contemporary. And the color is great. So next slide. Here is a major, major pop of blue. So the owner of this home out in Bunker Hill in Memorial loves big, bold colors, loves sparkle. In fact, her interior designer said her client's favorite color was sparkle. And you can see it in the big chandeliers, you can see it in the gold framing of the mirrors, the detail trim on the chairs. And you can see it on the walls, which even have a little bit of gold in them. So they put a faux finish on these walls so that they would have, it would look like some texture in them. The chairs are custom made, and you can see that the captain chairs on each end have a tall back, and the side chairs are a little bit shorter and have that nice ring on the back, so that the upholstery on your chairs isn't getting worn by every time you grab the chair to pull it out. You can grab that ring and pull it out, which makes the upholstery look nicer, longer. And it's just a nice little finishing detail. These chandeliers, light fixtures over dining tables have gone big. That is one trend I will say in lighting in a lot of rooms, but especially in dining rooms. They're not putting smaller chandeliers, they're putting bigger ones, and sometimes two big ones instead of one larger one. And these have a lot of crystal and a lot of gold, very glittery, very high fashion. So let's move on to the next slide. So this is a much simpler room. This is a breakfast area, not a big fancy formal dining room. But what I love about this room is the simplicity of it. And I just love those chairs. When you're designing rooms at sort of the back of your home where you have a big patio that is also furnished, where you do outdoor entertaining, you want your rooms to kind of match what's outside. So there's this indoor-outdoor feel to outdoor spaces being nicer, and they all reflect what's inside. Sometimes what's inside reflects what's outside. And in this case, these are chairs that are wrapped in this jute that's sort of rope-like, but softer so it's not scratchy. And they've put cushions on them. But the chairs have such a natural fiber to them that it feels very outdoorsy. Those chairs could just as easily be covered in resin that looks like that and sitting on a back porch. And they've put this simple light fixture that blends with the black steel framed big window that's there. This house has windows that all match those, and putting that big rectangular light fixture just sort of really, really goes with the look of the windows. So we can move on to the next slide. Here's another dining room that is sort of a high fashion dining room. So this family put up some very, very nice de Gournay wallpaper. De Gournay is made in England. It's very high end. Sometimes their wallpaper is like hand painted and custom made with a pattern created just for a specific home. This is a pattern, a willow pattern that is customized. So it can be designed to have the willow branches draping down any length that you want. So this wallpaper already existed, but the style of it, the shape of the tree limbs and the willow branches was customized for them. The chairs, the wooden frame on the side chairs has a feel almost of like tree bark. And they've got them because it kind of blended with the feel of the wallpaper. They're antiques that were found on firstdibs.com. And they just look great in the home. And I think you might notice that this light fixture, the chandelier, is very similar to the one in the Altuve home, that first slide I showed you. This is a really popular style of chandelier that you can find in from a variety of manufacturers and a variety of sizes. I've seen them in like a black finish, I've seen them in a silver or nickel kind of finish, and I've seen them in a gold or brass finish. So it comes very different shapes and sizes, but that clear globe on, on those sort of branches that come out. A very popular style you'll see a lot. You cannot go wrong with that light fixture. It works in traditional, mid-century, transitional, and very contemporary homes. This home is very traditional. Jose Altuve's was very contemporary. They have the same light fixture, and it looks great in both. So we can go on to the next slide. So I talk about color, but here's a room that has a lot of white. I wanted to include this because I just love this dining room. Even though I love color and I want to have color in my own dining room, this one is just so beautifully put together and has some ideas that might inspire you to do some interesting things in your own. So what you see are 3 walls of draperies. It is not because they're all windows. Those are actually walls, but they were kind of boring. And the designer said, let's dress it up and make the space feel more intimate by hanging sheer draperies all around the room. There is a back corner that has a doorway. You probably can't tell it very well, but there is a doorway back there where you can go into the kitchen or a butler's pantry and then the kitchen from this dining room. But they hung draperies all around to soften the room, give it a more intimate feel, because this family uses their dining room every day. And so they have their dinners there. They've got settees on the side, on both sides. So it has sort of a comfortable living room kind of feel. And then beautiful chairs, 3 chairs at each end, so they can accommodate a lot of people. They've added color in the artwork and in some flower arrangements that are in there. I just think it's a gorgeous room that there's a big takeaway in. So we can move on to the next slide. So here is a home in an open concept. The dining room is part of, to the left is the kitchen, to the right is the family room. That's one big open space. And so they chose a color palette of yellows and greens and blues, mostly yellows and greens that have a little blue undertone, but they went with a lot of neutrals, and their pops of color come in small doses. So you can see on the back wall, there is a buffet, and it's painted sort of a turquoisey green-blue color with a distressed look. And then the chairs around the table, the backs of them have a really pretty, fresh pattern to them, almost like a chartreuse color. The seats are off-white. The rug is, sort of a natural color, but the backs of the chairs have this bright chartreuse color. So their color came in kind of small doses, but in a finite palette of greens, yellows, and blues. So we can move on to the next slide. Now we're going to move on to living rooms, which is a great place to put some color. So let's move on. So here is a really pretty living room. This is another open concept. So you're picking a color palette that's going to blend for the whole space. So earlier I showed you in the dining room section, that breakfast area. This is the home that breakfast area is in. And in the left side of your screen, you can kind of see a little bit of those chairs. So the living room has a white sofa and white chairs, but they put in some colorful pillows and these beautiful emerald green armchairs on one end. The homeowner at first was afraid they were maybe way too bright green because it's a vivid emerald green. It looks a little more subdued in the picture on your screen, but they're beautiful emerald green. And I think they just look really great in this room, because when it's just all one color, all white or all taupe, I think it's a little boring. And I think people get tired of that pretty fast and decide they want to add something in. So by starting with some chairs in a certain color that you love is a great idea. And you've got the dark blue pillows on the sofa with some that have a blue pattern. And then in the foreground, those white armchairs have pillows with a tiger on them, of all things. I don't know if they were fans of that tiger show, but I thought it was a really fun thing to put on those chairs. So we can move on to the next slide. Again, peacock blue. I mentioned earlier, it's a very big color this year. So in this home, this is in the Heights, they've got peacock blue and chartreuse in the same room. And if you had told me that I was going to love it, I might have hesitated and I thought, that's two really bold colors that could easily clash, but work together so well here. So they've got these chartreuse draperies on all these windows, and that's a lot of window. And this is the living room that you walk in the house, and that is the first room that you see on your left. And they've got a simple neutral sofa and those wishbone chairs that are very a popular mid-century style, and they've covered them in an animal hair. And then you've got a peacock blue chair off to the side. And then in the rug, those colors show up again with a little bit of a rusty color that you see in a couple of the pillows. And then peacock blue in the rug. One thing that this family really loved was Chihuly art. So Francis, welcome to my talk this morning. We're glad you can make it. And so they love Chihuly art, and it's a form of glass art that is very well known, very expensive, but they've got a piece of it up on a big pedestal on the left. So I just love that. We can move on to the next slide. So here's a home that is in the kind of Rice University area. And they went really big on a light makeover in their home. So they touched a lot of rooms. In some, they did more than in others. It wasn't any real construction for the most part. It was just decor. And they added a lot of color. So this is a front living room that was kind of all neutral and very plain. And they took that back wall and painted it with lacquer. They have lacquered that wall, kind of a deep teal peacock blue. It almost looks like it's navy, but it's this really dark blue that's lacquered, so it's very shiny. But I think it's just so striking. So that's such a big color. They went kind of neutral with the sofas and the chairs, but then they've got an ottoman in a blue shade of blue that works really well with those walls. And then again, chartreuse in that one pillow, and there's some chartreuse in the rug on the floor. Again, it's a combination that you just think is, chartreuse is such a strong color. What is it going to work with and not overwhelm the room? But you put a little bit of it in that one pillow and in the rug, and it just adds a lot of personality. They also have a bunch of Andy Warhols from his Cowboys and Indians series, and they sprinkled them through the home, and they took some of them to the husband's office. I think they've got 8 or 10 of them. So they appear in different rooms in this home, and it's just really interesting art, pop art to put in a fairly traditional home. Adds a lot of color and personality. So let's move on to the next slide. So another room in that home, as you can tell from the painting on the wall, that's the Geronimo piece of art from that Cowboys and Indians series. And this is the family room in this home was giant. so big, they created 2 seating areas. So one area has like sofas and chairs and the TV, and the back part of it, that's at the back of the house, has this smaller, more intimate seating area. And when you have homes with really, really big living rooms, some people don't quite know how to fill them. You look at it as 2 spaces. You create 2 different seating areas. One that's for more people, maybe for TV watching, and another where you have your friends over and you want to sit and have a glass of wine. You can be in a more intimate space. Everybody has their own chair, and you can be super comfortable. So not a ton of color in this house, but they've got this garnet color in the pillows on the chairs, and then that yellow, goldish yellow, and the orange in the piece of art over the fireplace. So the color is in smaller doses, but very deep tones that bring a lot to the room. So we can move on to the next frame. So the color in this room is more subtle. The chairs in the foreground are kind of a soft blue. And if you want color, but not like those deep dark tones like we've seen in some of the other rooms with the chartreuse and the peacock blue and the garnet, those are colors that are really bold. If you still want softer color, those chairs in the foreground, I just love them. I think they're so pretty. And they have this soft blue color in the upholstery. And that goes with a lot of different things. The rug is kind of a gray blue color, you know, bluish undertones. And then the rest of the furniture honestly is neutral, and it allows you to do a lot of other things. There's some art in the room that you don't see in this picture, but there is art in the room that brings in a lot more color. But I just love those chairs and wanted to show you a way that you can bring in some softer color that still worked very well. So next slide. Peacock blue again, I told you it's really big. So this is a historic home in Broadacres, and it's got young homeowners in their 30s, and the wife loves color, and they took that peacock blue color and they applied it in a number of rooms. So you kind of see at the right of your screen in the background, there's a family room back there, and they painted all of it peacock blue, all the walls. And this room, the formal living room, they just painted the fireplace that color. So there's a little bit here, but it had, you know, a wooden mantle and some stone. They painted all of it the peacock blue to just give it a big dose. And again, there's chartreuse in the painting on top of the fireplace. They put those caramel colored leather chairs. That color of leather is really popular, and it goes with a lot. It brings such a natural feel to the room to have some leather on top of wood, and it goes with every shade of blue you could put in a room. And then you've got a little bit of orange in the other side chair on the left of your screen. So you can do color in kind of smaller doses, even if the shades are bold and deep. You can put lots of different colors. Just watch your color wheel to see what colors go together, and you can't go wrong with that. So let's move on to the next slide. Here's a room that's got a lot of that soft blue again. The blue goes well with so many natural colors, whether you go with a soft blue like this, or a navy blue, or even a peacock blue or turquoise. It goes with earth tones so well. So this home already had a lot of brick in it, and it's sort of a tan brown rust, which you see in a lot of Mediterranean style homes. This home is up in the Woodlands. You have a lot of that up there. And they went with blues because it goes so well with the wood floors and the brick fireplace, and then the brick that you see in the kitchen that's off to one side. They did a fair amount of renovation here. That wall with the fireplace had really small doorways, and they basically took the walls out so it would be really, really open, and you just have the fireplace kind of separating the 2 spaces. But they went with softer blues and used pattern to add some more personality. So you can see there's pattern in the rug, a different pattern in those armchairs, and you've got some solid blue and some pillows, but also some floral pillows that are yet another pattern. Mixing patterns is kind of hard to do, I think, for people who haven't done a lot of decorating. It can be tough, but it can certainly be done, and it adds personality when you're not using a lot of different colors. Using more patterns can make a room more interesting and certainly more comfortable, because this is just sort of a calm, soothing room. And this room went from a place that didn't get used very often to a room that got used a lot. So let's move on. Another pair of green chairs. You know, green goes well with blue. So when blue is big, green is usually going to be pretty big too, if you like green. And this is a little bungalow I want to say this was in Montrose, but a little bungalow, not a lot of room. This was the living room, and it really held a sofa that's so small it had to be custom made, and 2 chairs, and that's their living room. But they needed some color in there, and they decided 2 chairs in a bold color, and the homeowner loved green. So they chose green and put some pillows with a blue print. And I think it just looks so great in this room. So let's move on. Here's another soft blue room. This is actually a family room, even though it looks kind of formal and fancy, and you might automatically think it's a formal living room. This is really a family room. And they have gray walls, very light gray walls, and white draperies, and sort of a white rug. So there's a lot of neutral in here, but that sofa is a pale blue, and the armchairs are also a pale blue pattern. They put some white, blue and white porcelain in to get some deeper tones in here. But one thing I included this slide, even though they're softer blue colors, I wanted to point out that all the fabric in this room is indoor-outdoor fabric. So it used to be that, you know, you thought of outdoor fabric as sort of that scratchy sunbrella stuff that, you know, you would get on a lawn chair years ago. And technology has improved it so much that you can walk into a home and see a velvet sofa, and then they'll tell you that it's indoor-outdoor fabric because it looks so nice. You would think it's like a expensive silk velvet, and it's perennials indoor-outdoor fabric. So this sofa and those chairs are indoor-outdoor fabric. They have young kids in this home, and they didn't want people to worry about spilling things. And so if a snack gets spilled or somebody drops their grape juice or whatever, it cleans right up. So that is another thing to remember about having comfort in your home. When you have durable fabrics, you can be comfortable in a room and not worry about spills or stains getting on things because it's so easy to clean up. Sometimes the fabrics are a little bit more expensive, but they're worth the investment because they will last longer and look nicer. There's nothing worse than getting a new sofa and then spilling something on it and thinking, man, now I got to live with that stain forever. So if you spend money on it, you want it to last a long time and look good while you've got it. So let's move on. Now we're going to take a look at kitchens. The next slide, please. So color is showing up in kitchens, in bar stools, and in the islands. I'm still seeing a lot of people painting their cabinets white or some very light color, but they're using a different color on their island. And they're doing this with countertops too. So you can see the perimeter counters on the back have black granite. They put white, a white stone on their island. So you've got black and white on the outside and a super beautiful stove, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And then the island was painted peacock blue, and the chairs have peacock blue. So there's a fair amount of neutral in this room. You've got wood floors that are neutral, the cabinets and walls are neutral, big, bold pop of color in the island, and that is a huge trend. Whether you go with a dark blue or a peacock blue or green, I even saw one that was canary yellow, which was a little shocking, but it was gorgeous and the people loved it. One statement that people are making in their kitchens is with their range. This is a gorgeous, gorgeous LeCanche range and matching range hood that can be so expensive. Some of those are, you know, if you have a LeCanche range, it can run $15,000 to $50,000. It's a little shocking how expensive they can be, but that is like a piece of jewelry in this room. It is just so gorgeous. So let's move on to the next slide. The color was a little more toned down in this one. This is a little while ago, I mentioned the living room that was really small and had those 2 green chairs. Well, this is the kitchen in that home. And it's a single dad with 2 sons. And so this is kind of a masculine home. Didn't want anything too feminine or girly because it's a bunch of guys living here. So they went with this taupe geometric tile on the wall, but they've got some soft turquoise in the window treatment, and there's an adjoining breakfast area, and they've got these cute bistro chairs that are turquoise and white that really tie in to that color in the window treatment. But I love this kitchen. It's small but super functional, and I think just really nice looking. So let's move on. Blue again. They went big on blue in this room. So this was a room that hadn't been updated in a while. Got a new homeowner, and he wants to just really make it over. These cabinets were all plain wood, dark brown. And so to save money, because they were doing some other renovations, they put new doors on. They put new doors on the cabinets and some gold hardware, gold pendants over the island, and then this herringbone, it's Carrara marble laid herringbone style for the tile treatment on the walls. But they even put navy blue with gold trim on the range hood. So they went really big with blue in this kitchen, and I just love it. And again, this is a home owned by a single dad. But he wanted color in his house. So I see we have a new person joining us. Welcome. You're labeled on the screen as iPhone, so whoever you are, welcome to our talk today. Let's move on to the next slide. And so the black, gray, white theme is still very big, and it can come off as cold. And so when you want a lot of this, a contemporary home with black and gray and white, one way to really warm it up is with things that are more natural. So they've got a wood floor, which instantly warms up a room. And they put these cane bar stools at the island, which brings in another natural fiber, which really warms up a room. In this home, they have opted out of cabinets on each side of the range hood and put some open shelves up there. That was a big trend for a while. I see it once in a while. I think it might be dying down. Certain people love it, and if you love it, it's your home and you should do it. But it's something that I'm seeing a little bit less of, and I don't know if that trend is on its way out or if people are gonna, stick with it. But it looks really nice in this home. And I like that they have done the sort of antique brass metal frame that goes in with antique brass on the range hood, and then the brass plumbing fixtures at the sink. So I just love the way that all looks. So let's move on to the next slide. Blue, I told you it was big, 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 big this year. And this kitchen does have open shelves. Instead of that metal frame, these are wood shelves that look more floating, like it's just cantilevered from the wall. They're not super deep, so you're not stacking dishes on them the way that last slide did. This is more about putting some decorative elements on. But they used dark blue on the cabinets and on the island, and they covered their island in stone in a style that's called waterfall. So it's on the top and then down the sides. And then the corners are mitered. And so that corners are, it's called book matched. So they have book matched the veining and the way the corners all come together. And they call that a waterfall style. So if that's the style you like and you're working with a contractor or designer, all you have to say is, I want my island covered in stone waterfall style. And they will know exactly what you're talking about. And again, they've used cane chairs in this room too. They are just a fresh look that brings in a natural fiber. That's very big in home design right now. I've been seeing cane chairs, cane back or cane seat or both, in bar stools for kitchens, in dining rooms, in breakfast areas, and even in living rooms. So I'm seeing that show up in every room in the house. They have kind of a mid-century feel, but they're really updated for 2020. So let's move on to the next slide. So here's the kitchen. A while ago in the living room section, there was a soft blue living room where they had the brick fireplace. Well, this is that home. And so this is the back side of that fireplace. And so you can see that the brick continues in not a huge way, but on that one back wall. So you're not overwhelmed by it. And they reinvented this kitchen to make it more functional, to have cabinets that allow them to display some pretty things up top, drawers down bottom that are easier to get into. If you're trying to age in place, drawers are so much better, because if you've got doors and everything's on a bottom shelf, you have to get down on your hands and knees or bend over to get things out. And if you're getting older and you don't have to get up and down all the time, you just pull out a drawer and lift something out of it. So drawers in a kitchen are a great element for aging in place. They have used this deep, dark, it's a dark charcoal gray with sort of blue undertones in the island. I am seeing that a lot too, going with like a dark gray, charcoal gray or black in bathrooms and in some kitchens like this. But in this case, they've gone with white on the perimeter and this charcoal black on the island. So let's move on to the next slide. Bedrooms. It's a great room to talk about. Let's move on to the next one. So here is a small bedroom that, you know, when a room is small, you have to really make the most of every inch. So I've shown you the kitchen and the living room in this home. This is the small bungalow. It was the single dad with 2 boys. And so this is the dad's primary or master bedroom. And it was the last room they did in the house. So the budget was kind of small. They had spent all their money on the more public rooms. But in this room, they have an upholstered bed and then draperies with a solid color and then the same pattern upholstery that is on the bed. It was a way to bring personality and color to the room without having to spend a lot more money. You can see in the one corner, there's a rattan chair that fits into the cane category of, you know, it shows how to put some of that natural fiber in a chair in a bedroom. So I think it's a really cute room. And they've got green pillows in addition to that sort of rusty color that is elsewhere in the room. Let's move on to the next slide.
Actually, Diane, it's 10 o'clock now, so we'll actually have to wrap this meeting to make time for our next presenter.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming today. Again, my name is Diane Cowen. If you have any questions about design in your own home, feel free to give me a call, 713-362-6854, or just shoot me an email to diane.cowen@cron.com. You can find my stories on HoustonChronicle.com. My email address is there, and all you have to do is click on it and just send me questions. Or if you working on a project and you want some feedback on how to find people or how to put style together, I'm happy to help. But thank you so much for coming today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the show. And I'll be on tomorrow at 3:30 if you want to join me talking about trends in bathrooms. So bye-bye, and thanks for coming.